What's up, everybody? My name is Ryan Tansom, and I am the founder of the Independence by Design, the ownership operating system. You can check out the video if you want to know more about the ownership operating system. I've got a full overview video about the system. The purpose of this video is who the hell am I? Well, why should you care? What gives me any right to speak about what a business is all about? And I just thought I'd give you my full story arc because it has been a windy road and with a lot of ups and downs that led me to here and to you speak or listening to me speak. Here's the raw truth. It all started as a kid. I grew up in Minnesota, Matamidi, Minnesota, and I have since I can remember as a child, there were two questions that I always wanted answers to, which is why are we here? What's the point? And if I couldn't answer those questions, I would get C's and D's. And so I struggled with school, to be honest, which I think a lot of entrepreneurs and, I've had 450 podcast interviews and a lot of us struggle with authority. And if I didn't have context to why, I mean, this is what's hilarious to me is in econ, I was getting a D and a B and I talk about monetary policy and macroeconomics now and business finance. And I got a C in math and as you build a relationship with me on these videos, you'll realize that when I have context to the goal, and I put my soccer picture up here because when I know what the goal is and how the game works, I can execute like a son of a gun. And I think every owner, operator, and entrepreneur that I've ever met is the same way. And a lot of times, if you got the E myth where people they had their entrepreneurial seizure. They got sick and tired of the man or woman telling them what to do, and they would rather take all the risks and work 80 hours a week to avoid someone telling them what to do. That is me to a T. And as I grew up, I was always searching for games to play that I could win at. And did a lot of sales. I had a lawn mowing business growing up, sold Cutco knives. I did a lot of sales stuff. And my dad, it all starts, my real entrepreneurial spirit started with him because this is my house growing up. And my dad bought a bunch of copiers and he mortgaged our house to buy those copiers. It was like $250 or $300,000 worth of Panasonic copiers. I was in elementary school, and I remember. I mean, he had one employee, and I was like 12 years old. It was in the early 90s, and he always told me, you can do whatever you want, Ryan, because he barely graduated high school. He ended up succeeding significantly in sales jobs and then mortgaged our house to buy a bunch of copiers because he wanted his own company and manages and have his own destiny in his own hands to search for the independence that he wanted. And I will never forget every single night at 9 o'clock, he'd come home and I'd hear the play by play after he'd work all those long hours. And it was everything from getting the Canon license to I helped him move a couple locations as he kept growing. And it was, hiring people. And then these are people that became integrated into my family, going on hunting trips and fishing trips. And, I had internships selling copiers at the age of 19 and then water units when we decided to get into water, which was a bad idea. um, and the company became very successful. My dad, we hit the Inc. 5000, Inc. 500, the fastest 50. We ended up hitting 21 million in revenue. And I worked in the business my whole life. My dad and I are like oil and water. We're very similar, but very different. I'm still best friends with him. And he's an integrated part of our family, lives 5 minutes down the road. Did not want to work for him. I am professionally unemployable. I have a hard time with people telling me what to do, especially my dad. And so swore my grave I'd never go work for him. Any family business, that's how the story goes. And 2009 happens and I decide to join full time. And the reason I decided to join full time is I graduated St. John's University in Minnesota. The world had taken a shit. A 98% placement went down to 2%. The whole thing inverted it. And I was probably one of the only people out of all my friends that had job offers because I was willing to work for $1,500 a month. And my dad's GM at the time recruited me to come be a solution sales person. It was a bunch of bullshit. It was just managed print services, which was just copiers. Anyways, started working for the family business. And as a second generation, I always say you have two options: be the entitled prick everyone thinks you're going to be, or work twice as hard to earn the same level of respect that everybody else already gets. The benefit was I started in sales. And so numbers are objective. I made more phone calls than everybody. I ended up exceeding quota and making a bunch of money selling copiers in 2009 while everyone else's that I graduated with broke. I liked making money and I loved being responsible for my own destiny. And so I had a nice blissful year selling and having a lot of fun making money. And then at the end of 2009, you know, on 21 million in revenue, I was sitting in a bank in a CPA meeting with my father because he pulled me into all the bank and the CPA meetings right off the bat. We lost $940,000 on 21 million bucks in revenue. Bad deal. And there's a lot of reasons why that happened. I mean, it was the financial crisis. There's a lot of stuff that, went down in 2009. One of the primary reasons that this happened to us is my dad had been very distant from the company for about 5-6 years, going through a bunch of personal stuff. There was a shitload of cash flow in the business for many years on the margins in the equipment, the margins on the service revenue, and he was just not going into the business. The GM was helping. The GM was running the business. There was no ownership operating system in place, which is why I built what I'm talking about now, and I'll get more into that. I mean, it was a mess. I mean, we were focused on top line revenue and gross profit, and just everything was out of whack. So the bank meeting, when I'm sitting in the bank meeting and you hear that news, I mean, you only have so many choices. And so for the next 6 years, it was the bank versus us. And it was hit the $240,000 payroll every other week, make sure we collect our receivables, push off our payables, turn the inventory, and make sure that we somehow had cash in the bank for payroll when the bank wire hit every other Thursday. We'd hit the bank roll, we'd hit the wire, we'd immediately get in the car, go to our cabin in Wisconsin and pound Captain Morgan, and then do it all over again. Just ridiculous. I found out the hard way. We were living off of cash flow. And the moment, my favorite visual is my dad said, when we were in one of these meetings and you just get the shit kicked out of you. And he's like, I feel like I've been driving a dump truck full of water down the highway and we hit the brakes and everything just came right over us. And that's what happened. And the good news is I learned a lot because, the real entrepreneurial spirit is you just never give up. And if you're listening to this and you're consuming content and trying to figure things out, you're probably in the same boat. It's like, okay, well, what do you do? I mean, what are your options? You do a fire sale? You got personal guarantees. You're already eating shit. You got the bank. You got your family. Everybody relies on you. We had 115 family members, families, let alone all of the families that were relying on us. So do you do a fire sale and then just shut the doors, which it's just not an option almost. It's just, as you can tell, I'm struggling for words because I remember it like yesterday. Or do you gamble it all, double down on personal guarantees, get new financing, scrounge up for every single penny in order to keep the machine going? Well, that's what we did. And so we took let's figure the shit out. And over the next 5.5 years, all through duct tape, spit, glue, some of the things that we did is, we had no org chart when we started. So put in an organizational chart. We sold a couple branches. We had Minnesota, Duluth, and St. Cloud. So sold a couple of those branches for cash. Put in a new ERP and accounting system, which was a total nightmare, which was like $350,000. New compensation plans. The margins of the equipment. So there was about a third of the revenue that was equipment every year. Margins are gone because we're competing with all the other dealers and also Canon, our manufacturer, which is a fun thing to be in with the distribution model. As a distribution business and distributor, everyone's got your money but you. So we're doing all this with no freaking line of credit, by the way, because we were factoring our receivables. Total ridiculous journey. Built out the managed IT service offering, as well as the software document management automation, rebranded everything so we could be the business office technology provider that we needed to be in order to continue to win. I fired 55 people by the time I was 25. I tried to quit like 3 times, crying at home because my dad and I are fighting and we're fighting with the bank. I mean, my God, it just like the total, the total shit show. However, making serious progress at the same time. And to the point where like we won the Minnesota Wild as a full technology provider. One of my favorite wins of the entire journey there, I had this awesome team. Like I read the book Zappos Delivering Happiness. We had an amazing culture. It went from toxicity to like just some of the best human beings I still talk to today. We built out this solution for the IT services, the office equipment, people on site, data hosting. I mean, you name it. And it was super fun, multi-million-dollar contract. And then my dad and I kept bumping into each other as I'm effectively running the business's operations as the executive vice president. I mean, if you want to use EOS terms, I'm the integrator, he's the visionary, yet I was also the visionary and integrator because I was so in the weeds, but also had the vision of the IT solutions, etc. And we kept bumping into like different needs and wants. We joined Vistage, EOS started coming out. I read every freaking book under the sun, trying to find a clear path. And if you watch the Independence by Design Ownership Operating System overview, you'll understand how this all fits together. I wanted a path to independence. I thought the business was going to be mine. I had a vision of being a $100 million company in multi-location state technology company. Yet, like everything I wanted to reinvest. I mean, we put a couple $1,000,000 back in at least that, a few $1,000,000 into the IT services. Then there was a software automation. My dad's like, I want more distributions. I'm sick and tired of doing this shit. I hate it. And so we were arguing over reinvestment versus distributions because our cash flow and our time were all commingled together. Employees had a say. All of our family members had a say. My parents were going through divorce in the middle of all this. We had a peer group. Every single member in the Vistage group had an opinion about it. We had Canon and we had a bunch of suppliers giving us opinions. Every consultant was able to pretend that they could solve all of our problems. Our customers had to never know that any of this shit was going on. We had no wealth manager because we had no liquid wealth. We had no CFO after I've done this now for 11 years. We had a bunch of controllers that were helping us juggle cash flow, and our CPA pretty much did nothing and was one of the reasons that the domino of all this stuff went into place because they were not helping us. Even though they were doing a gap audit, it was totally wrong. And then our banker was my mortal enemy. So this was the landscape of what we were dealing with. All the while I'm trying to get aligned with my dad, trying to figure, okay, how much cash flow do you need? Do you want the business? We had our roles of our job and the ownership all commingled. There was no clear line of sight of what the company was worth and how I'm wondering if you relate to this. If you're an owner operator and you have a job, you have an asset, you throw in one partner, two partners. I mean, this gets very convoluted very fast, which is why I created this whole system. And so that right there, it just led to this insane emotional roller coaster. I mean, like I said, I tried to quit 3 times. If I would have walked out, half the company would have walked out at one point. It was my dad's baby, originally. And then it became my baby and my identity. All of our family's retirement was, I mean, it's so complicated. And it's like, yay, this is so fun. Where's our cash? We landed the Minnesota Wild. I'd have like a wave of good employees leave. We crushed it this year. I'm so burnt out. I don't know what to do. Someone wants to buy the business. There was a big roll up going up in our industry. Then we found out the company was not worth what we wanted it to be. And then I'm having a blast, but my dad's not. We sold the field that we sold because this feeling of being trapped was the exact opposite reason of why we were entrepreneurs. So you just feel this, like the world's closing in and you're like, I feel I can see the opportunity, but I'm trapped. And it became so exhausting after talking to all these advisors for so many, years and not having any clear line of sight, because it was always like looking at one puzzle piece without the picture and not having any context of the rest of the puzzle pieces. And so we sold after a war with the bank for so long. And like we had got to the point where it was a nice, healthy 7-figure trailing 12 months of EBITDA. The company was rocking and rolling. It was awesome. I loved it. And then I felt like I had the rug pulled out from underneath me so we could get out of this situation and my dad could retire. And we sold to Loeffler, which is a company locally here in 2014. Great company, to be honest. Most of my employees are still there. The nature of the deal was, though, because we had a couple competitors that we had offers from, we picked Loeffler. There was the largest purchase price, but they were right down the road. There were so many strategic synergies, which increased the purchase price and take home for my dad and I. And the nature of that deal was I had my dad and I we signed the purchase agreement. We had to go back to the office. We called in. Now there was 90 employees at the time. Everyone had to interview for their jobs, and only 34 people got jobs. So like literally college buddies of mine, friends of mine, people went on my bachelor party with me and I went to college with or I grew up with because since I was 12, they were going to our family meetings or family get-togethers. Stan was with the company forever. All of our, oh, my wife's calling. All right. Whoops. All right. So I'm a real person and I didn't hit the focus button. Okay. So Stan and we had barbecues on Friday afternoons. We had all of these were friends and families of mine. That's our old logo when being a color copier business was a competitive advantage. So that's the rainbow logo above our old logo. All of our President's Club, all of our vacations every year were tied to it. Our charities were tied to the business. So on that day in 2014, we got an 8-figure bank wire and I had to fire 60 of my employees. My entire identity and everything that I had built just disappeared. I went home and I bawled my eyes out. I remember sitting on my bed at home, bawling my face off. My wife was sitting next to me. I'm like, what the hell was that? And I realized that my entire identity was tied to this business. And I read this book shortly after, which is his name is Bo Burlingham. Sorry, now my kids just came home. So I read this book by Bo Burlingham, who was the editor of Inc. magazine for 7 years. And he also is the author of Small Giants, The Great Game of Business, Street Smarts. Amazing human being. I've been on the podcast quite a few times. And I read this book. And he out of interviewing 300 owners, found out that 75% were unhappy 12 months after they sold, regardless of how much money they made. And man, did I resonate with that. And what he found out is because the owners didn't know who they were, what they wanted from their business, and why. And so I ended up lasting 60 days at the buyer's office. They were great to me, but I'm professionally unemployable. I have a visceral reaction to having people tell me what to do, unless I know what the purpose is and what the goal in the game is. So I quit after 2 months. And my goal is to figure out, what do we do about this? Like Bo wrote this book and figured this out, but it wasn't a how-to game plan. And what I realized after so it's been 11 years now. So I'm sitting here recording this in October of 2025. And I went on a mission to figure out what I could have done differently. So I started a podcast, and that podcast has now got 460 some episodes in. Bo was on the podcast. I got into finance. I had a couple years as a wealth manager. I think that was my least favorite thing I've ever done in my life. But I learned how money worked. And that was like what started this chain of events where, oh my God, our business is an asset. Like what a concept. And private equity. And it's this business operations plus investment. So it was like ding, 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 ding. Like, holy shit, like cash flow, valuations. That's the real goal. That led me to creating this consulting company where I was doing business valuations, due diligence libraries, focusing on growth and exit planning. And I learned really quickly. I engineered a business that no one wanted to work with. We did like 12-ish projects that were about 40 grand a piece, helped a lot of people, but I was attracting people that wanted to put lipstick on a pig and sell their business, and all the people that wanted to grow their business didn't want to work with it because of the word exit. And so I kept continuing to learn and learn and learn, interviewing people like Gino Wickman, John Warlow, Mike Michalowicz, Chris Voss from Never Split the Difference, Jack Stack. Kept learning, and I started learning more and more about the economy, ITR economics. Led me to starting this CFO services business because understanding the numbers to see the future cash flow and the distributions and the valuation became a lens that I really liked. And I had a coaching business, or a training coaching business, that got decimated because of COVID. So it allowed me to launch the CFO services. I am not a I'm not set out to have a professional services business where you're constantly having to reinvest to hit other people's payroll, where I'm eating, you know what, at the back of that. So hit a 7-figure business, and I got out of that in 2024, early 2024. I've had 3,000 business owners go through my workshops from EO and Vistage. I was a top Vistage award speaker. And the only reason I say that is because I've been trying out these ideas that are inside of the ownership operating system for 11 years. And I've just tried to search for the truth of, like, what could I have done? Like, what would have been a playbook that I could have followed where I could have still had independence of making my own freaking decisions without other people telling me what to do or other advisors taking advantage of me. And there wasn't one that existed. What I learned is that, the EOS operating system, but it was still missing pieces of what I call the ownership operating system. And at the end of the day, I don't know about you, I just want to be free. I just want to do whatever I want. This is me sitting on the top of a mountain in Colorado. Like, I just want to have all of the ups and downs be my responsibility. I want to experience the ups, I want to experience the downs, but I don't want anybody to tell me what to do. And I would like to have a map to help me with decision making, to say, okay, well, if I do this versus that, what's the impact? But a lot of us are navigating our ownership without a map. And I think that business is amazing, because I think owning a company is one of the most amazing vehicles for us to realize our truest potential as a person. I know it seems a little fluffy, but the people that I'm loving working with that are my clients, like Alan Watts, Joe Dispenza. I mean, I could go on and on about the people where we're talking about, Carl Jung. I mean, like, life is the experience is the point. And this graphic is something I created, and it's from this book called Conversations with God, where if experience is the point, we have a finite amount of time and then it's over, unfortunately. And if we have come up with a noble aim, like, what's our goal? Like, we have a complete self-authorship and responsibility to come up with our own goal. Like, what do you want for your life? What impact do you want to make? What do you actually want? The business becomes this vehicle. And then if we have the contrast of love and fear, we're on this roller coaster of life where we are going up and down. We want to get closer and closer to love, and our goal syncs us up, and a business becomes an amazing platform to orient everything. And then to be able to, like, magnify your values and your goals with the people you hire and the things you choose to do. And do you take that customer's refund because you thought it was the right thing to do, or do you hiring and firing? I mean, just all this stuff. But then there's economics behind it, where you need to make sure that you actually have enough money to live your lifestyle and your wealth. So there was this is the fundamental, which is why I think a lot of people are upset after they sell the business that Bo found out. And same thing with me. Even though you might have got an 8-figure wire, you're like, well, my whole life is, my identity's gone. Well, I wish I would have known that. What were the other choices, and how could I have gotten aligned with my dad so he could have done what he wanted while I also got done what I wanted? And I believe that there's a world where, as the owner, you coming up with your goal, the business operations should solve your goals, but we have to come up with our goals and then push them down through the operations so we can have a business that allows us to reach independence, whether we scale, step back, or sell. So if you want to grow the company and scale, well, scaling takes a lot of cash. Okay, well, there's always trade-offs. Do you give up equity? Do you take on financing? Can you or you step back, you suck up some more cash out of the company. Well, that's gonna, push off the valuation. I mean, there's no right or wrong answer, but independence allows us to build a business that completely satisfies your goals and then allows you to scale, step back, or sell and not regret it or have a hit on your lifestyle or the cash flow and wealth that you need. So that is exactly why I created the ownership operating system. So this ownership operating system is the solve that I figured out, because the business operating system over here, this business operating system, there's a lot of them out there. You got EOS, Scaling Up, OKRs, Great Game of Business. None of these are asking you, what do you want out of your time, your cash flow, and your wealth? And then having that as the frame of the puzzle to then have the puzzle pieces be the business. It's always just going into strategy and growing and scaling and this. It's like, well, okay, well, what if I don't have enough money to do that? What if I don't want that journey? What if it takes too much cash flow? Or what? I mean, we have to think about the business from your ownership asset allocation perspective. And so the ownership operating system is all about your time, your cash flow, and your wealth, how to think about the business as an asset, kind of think about like the private equity meets family office playbook, decouple your time. So if you can extract yourself out of the operations, and then actually I'll pull up just a little highlight of the system. Extract yourself out of the operations. You can actually get to a point where you use escape velocity to have that independence, and you're using your constraints, and you got a through path in order to actually go back and hit that independence, regardless of whether you're selling, scaling, or stepping back. And you can run the company from the boardroom, which creates complete optionality. And that optionality, I think, is what we're all looking for. So that is the Independence by Design ownership operating system that I created from my journey of ups and downs and eating shit and learning things the hard way. And I hope that benefits you as we're along this journey together. The first thing I would do, if you haven't yet, is check out the ownership operating system introduction video. And I'm going to continue generating a bunch of free content so that way you can follow along. And my goal is to help. My goal is that my content, my marketing is going to make a bigger impact than make a bigger impact on the world than the people that are actually working with me one-on-one. So hope you enjoyed. Follow along with the podcast. You can go subscribe to that or subscribe to the newsletter, which is where all of these videos and the content is. See you later.